Hey, what's going on, role players? I'm the Bard, and welcome back to the corner. I'm here today to bring you a Sorlock video. That's right, we're going to be revisiting the Bladelock just to try and make it as good as we can. Now, I know I've already done one of these, and it's actually doing quite well. So thanks to all of you guys who watched that. But there's something about it that it just broke my heart. I swear. I got into a debate in the comments, and well, you guys can see it for yourself. I'd love to see a way to get Bladelock viable though, because that's what I want to play for my next game from a theme perspective. It's just dumb that so much has to be sacrificed in order to make it kind of mediocre. There is a homebrew Eldritch Blade cantrip that aims to fix it, but I'm not sure it does too good a job. But if you find any way to make it happen, you know one who wants to know. I'll keep researching, want my Bladelock, but don't want my party to suffer for my choices. Oh, I was literally heartbroken when I read that. So I know I've got a habit of sometimes cherry picking classes and a little bit of min-maxing here and there, and I don't really ascribe to it, but you know, sometimes in order to build the character that you want to play, it does become necessary. But I would never, ever, ever tell anyone that their character was worthless. You know, I really can't conceive of it, because if you want to play something, if you want to do something, you want to enjoy it, then go ahead and do it. It doesn't matter if it's, you know, not top tier like the rest of them, but you've got to go with your theme. You got to go with what you're going to enjoy. But I mean, if we can put a few ideas in that's going to make it a little bit better, or perhaps add a few little tweaks to something that just make it more viable or more like what you want to play, or even just keep you, you know, on par with the rest of your players, then perhaps it's something worth taking a look at. So when I think of Warlocks, this is the imagery that comes to mind. Selling your soul to be the most powerful of spellcasters, bargaining to be the greatest warrior, you know, giving up everything to have domination over anything and everyone. This is what it means to be a Warlock in my mind, and this is the sort of thing that you should be thinking of when you're having your characters and building them. Now, I still stand by my decision during my previous video about strength over dexterity. I still think it's the way to go, and I really do believe wholeheartedly that if you follow a lot of the recommendations, maybe not all of them, but a lot of the recommendations that are made in the Bladelock video, that you can get a fairly respectable amount of damage out of it. I mean, you've seen the graph, you've seen the numbers, you've seen the potential, but at the same time, you know, there are other options, there are other hints, tips, and tricks that we can do with our characters to make them that much more viable. But at the end of the day, you know, you got to roll with what makes you happy. Sorry for the pun, wasn't intended. But let's have a bit of an explore and see if we can improve it a little bit more. So I think first and foremost it's important to understand your role if you're going to go with a blade-packed Warlock. Now this is a rule that I've always stuck to, and it might be of some value to you too, I don't know, but let's try it out. What I would say is, if you are a multi-class character like a fighter or wizard, or some kind of Gish variant, or even just like a Gish in a can, then this is what I do. I think to myself, am I trying to be a wizard who's trying to fight, or am I trying to be a fighter who's trying to wizard, or the equivalent of? So this is the rule that I work to. If you are a spellcaster who wants to be able to fight, then you are probably doomed to fail. If you are a fighter who has a wizard's bag of tricks, then you can only improve. And this is what I think people need to understand about fighter style mages. This isn't quite as prominent as it was in 3rd edition because of the way 5th is laid out, but I still keep it as a backup rule, and I think it's vital. That essentially what you're doing is you are supplementing your weakest class. So for example, back in 3rd edition, wizard was top tier, and I think fighter was something like tier 3 or tier 4, somewhere along those lines. So what you were doing is, if you were a wizard taking fighter levels, you were essentially gimping yourself. Whereas if you were a fighter continuing to fight and then use wizardry to improve that, then you were getting benefits. And this is what I think people need to understand about being a Bladelock. I think the Bladelock's main purpose is to be a second-ranked warrior. So someone in the back, just behind the main fighter or main damage sponge, and using those reach weapons to deal the extra damage. And this is really kind of prevalent if you consider what I've been saying all the way along about using glaives and halberds. You can mitigate that fact that your hit points and your armor are somewhat in the mediocre range by literally not being in combat and using other advantages such as range or reach or cover, because the Warlock is a character of deception. It is a character of lies and manipulation, and it is a character of trickery and skill. And what makes it that much more interesting, I think, than your bog standard fighter would be the way that it manipulates the environment, the way that it uses spells to enhance its ability to deal damage with its main weapon. So if you're going for the fighter variant Warlock, these are the things you need to keep in mind. You're not going to be up front, you're going to be dodging, you're going to be weaving, you're going to be hitting from the reach weapon, and that's the way to do it. At least this is in my mind, this is the way to do it. So I'll have a quick recap on what we used to do back in the old Warlock video. I said go strength, maybe go with something like a Dragonborn, and you'll want to look at those feats like Polearm Master, Great Weapon Master, possibly Sentinel. There was a really good comment, however, that suggested Warcaster, and this would be a really nice variant to the Sentinel feat. There are certain things that you want to consider, like, do you have any decent single target damage spells? And I still believe that Sentinel is the stronger option, because if you are a potential target and they choose to fight someone else, then Sentinel is going to come into play really nicely and give you a bonus attack with your additional strength, additional charisma damage if you're that level, with your hex on top of it. So it's still a strong option. However, if you're choosing to go a little bit of multiclass, then you've got some really strong options, especially in those single targets, because what happens with Warcaster is you have to target that single creature that provokes an attack of opportunity, and you have to use something that targets purely that. Now, if you had a multiclass character with like some sorcerer levels, you can use, I think it's Twin Spell, and the caveat in Twin Spell is that you have to have only a single target effect. So you've been locked into this single target spell by virtue of your feat, but you can double the damage up straight away by spending some sorcery points. This is great because you have the reach weapon. Anyone that provokes, an attack of opportunity because they're moving around your threatened area, because you have much wider range of attack with a reach weapon like a glaive. So as soon as they provoke, if you don't want to take your physical attack, you can go with the spell, and then you can use your sorcery points to essentially double the amount of damage that you're doing. I think it's a strong option. So I would definitely consider Warcaster along with some sorcerer levels. On top of that, at level 5, I think, or 5 or 6, you get access to your third level spells and you can have haste. Haste is an amazing spell. It's great, it really is. That extra armor, that extra movement, that extra attack. Haste is amazing. If you're not going with Hex at the time, then haste is probably better when you consider how many attacks you get compared to how much additional damage Hex will be doing. If you're even lucky enough to have another player in the party cast haste on you, you can keep your Hex up. Wow, that's enormous amounts of damage. So this is the part in the video where I get to shamelessly promote my other vids. And if you have seen my rogue video, you will know that I have a quite serious dislike of Assassinate. I couldn't even rate the Assassin class at all. But, you know, I don't really want to flog the dead horse that is Assassinate, but unfortunately, this just makes it so much more, you know, bottom of the rung. And it's whole person, and it just comes in and it slaps Assassinate right in the face. So I've actually looked a bit deeper into the conditions in the back of the 5th edition book, and Paralyzed is just beastie. I didn't even realize, you know, because obviously I don't tend to run the game, I tend to play it, but Paralyzed, wow. Advantage on attacks against the paralyzed creature, and as long as you're within, 5 feet of them, they're always going to be critical hits as well. That's ridiculous. So if you've got a character who can just kind of go, okay, I'm going to hold person on that target, and your Bladelock comes in and goes, right, well, I've got my glaive, and I've got my, you know, weapon master polearm, and I've got all my hex and stuff, and any other abilities, maybe if you've got like a battle master, multiclass, or anything like that, you can just go, right, I'm going to hit that target, it's going to have an advantage, all my dice are going to be doubled, and from there on, you know, you just pound the creature until there's nothing left. This obviously gives way to Hold Monster in the future. Even if you yourself are the Warlock who's casting Hold Person, you can still get some use out of it. It would be much better if you have another caster in the group who can do it for you, so you can concentrate on the attacking, but you know, you got to go with what you got to go with sometimes. But it's still amazing damage. And this also goes back to the response video I did on Make Critical Hits Great Again. Now, if you saw that, you'll realize, okay, he was saying he wanted better critical hits just because reasons. And I was saying, no. And this is a perfect example. Hold person on the target, everyone in the party can attack it, everyone gets a critical hit automatically. That rule is going to turn around and bite him right in the ass, because all someone has to do is go hold person, and if you have the exploding dice, then that is just going to annihilate whatever you've paralyzed. There's just no two ways about it. Battlemaster and Sorcerer are not the only things that you could multiclass into. I happen to think that there are a lot of options available, and if you include something like Cleric or Wizard into the mix, then you've got a bunch of more character development and a bunch of more physical options that you can use. Because these classes do have some seriously interesting abilities in their lower levels, which you can really use to help your fighting. Now, if you wanted to go, say, Abjurer, you'd have the Abjurant Shield, which is really nice. It's an easy one to, you know, help keep you alive. But if you're doing the whole second rank fighter thing, then the Arcane Ward isn't really going to be as necessary. Although it does help, you know, if you go maybe up to level 6, you can then use it on other people, and therefore, you know, start adding to group survivability. But if you're more of a self-centered Warlock, and that's kind of your character, and you're more, you know, all about your own prowess first, then you could consider Diviner. And this is a really nice themed one, actually. Because if you go Diviner, obviously you're all about the secrets, you're all about discovery, you're all about then manipulation and deception. But you've got some great little abilities, like your second level ability, Portent. So that's really nice, because it can basically take any number that you roll on those 2d20, which you can then use for replacing attack rolls, saving throws, or ability checks. And it doesn't really matter what you roll, it's going to be of some value to you. If you roll any kind of low number, then you can instantly say, okay, I am going to cast Hold Person, and if they save, or, you know, look like they're going to save, then you can just go bang, I will drop in a low number. If you get a natural 1 on that roll, that's brilliant, because you can guarantee that that thing is not going to save against your whole person. Likewise, if you get a natural 20 and you get a bit of a sucky attack roll, you can just substitute for that. So it's going to be critical hit after critical hit after critical hit. So you're going to be able to keep your damage up, especially with the other people in your group. If, on the other hand, you want to enhance your players, well, you can still do that. But I think the selfish archetype of the Warlock is still pretty much the way to go. But that's just an idea. Likewise, there's Cleric. And I think if you were going to go Cleric, you want to consider going with the Storms. So the Tempest Domain is, again, a really interesting one that you can do. The Wrath of the Storm is really nice, and things like your Channel Divinity Destructive Wrath can help you bring out massive amounts of guaranteed damage, especially if you're using certain abilities like the Divine Strike. Now, alright, I know that's like level 8 in Cleric, so it's a bit of a slog, but when you've got things like your Channel Divinity and your Divine Strike, they do actually work together, so you're guaranteed that extra 8 damage. You don't even have to roll for it, it's just done. The War Priest also has a nice theme to it, so if you prefer a War Priest over, say, Tempest Domain, then yeah, you can go for that. But I think the Tempest one's a little bit better because of the way that you can combine it with certain things, like if you were, say, Blue Dragonborn, or I think Bronze? Is it Bronze? Then you get your lightning damage just maximized as well from your Channel Divinity when you're using your breath weapon. So, options. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. Now, I think I want to end it somewhat here because I don't want to go on and on about potential rules. Because if you go on about potential things, then it's just going to be option after option after option. But what I will say is that if you take some of the ideas, there are some really nice role-playing opportunities in them as well. So, for example, if you went Warlock and Cleric, and you went with Storm, then you could, say, have a Fey Patron. So you could be granted your power by the Fey creatures, but you could also revere and venerate nature. So you could then try to promote that through your clerical teachings. Whereas, if you went with, say, something like Wizard, you've been delving into the dark secrets and you've found a dark patron, and you can then move out of your wizard training and then into that bargaining for power. So there are loads of options available to you. If you wanted to, say, multiclass into sorcerer, there's the Dragonborn bloodline. But then again, you could also kind of work in perhaps some demonic bloodline as well, so that you actually have a reason to combine the two together, and then you would have like options there. There are lots and lots of things that you can do to really build the character, to really get a personality, to really have a background for your choices. And there is just so much that you can work on, so really go with it. Don't be afraid to multi-class. The rules are really multi-class friendly actually, and really explore the options. And I think we'll just leave it there tonight, because I'm going to end up going on and on and on and on and on. So you guys know the routine by now. You like, you comment, you subscribe. It gives me incentive to go out and research these things for you. Like I keep saying, we're all working together and we're all trying our best to help each other. Yeah, do those things, because every time I see a like, every time I see a comment, I just think, I've helped someone do something, and it just motivates me to do more. I hope you got some information out of this, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time at the gaming table.